Ever wondered if wind farms could just float away on the ocean, harnessing even more power without hogging the shoreline? Today, we're diving into the buoyant world of floating offshore wind farms. You and I have an insatiable appetite for electricity. Come with me and we'll look at the issues relative to wind farms and the communities that they serve. This is the Windfarm Guy. Hi, this is Dennis Stout, and thank you for joining me for this episode of the Windfarm Guy. Today we're talking about the rise of floating offshore wind farms. Those innovative turbines that bob on the ocean like giant fishing boats. But instead of catching tuna, they're snagging wind energy. Unlike traditional fixed-bottom offshore turbines stuck in shallower waters, floating ones use massive platforms anchored by cables, allowing them to venture into deeper seas where the winds are stronger and more consistent. This tech gaining traction in the U.S., especially on the West Coast and in the Great Lakes, where there is little shelf and deep waters make fixed turbines impractical. Let's start with the pros, because who doesn't love a good upside? First off, those floating beasts can generate twice as much energy as their onshore cousins. Why? Offshore winds are stronger and steadier over water. There are no hills or buildings getting in the way. Imagine your turbine on steroids, pumping out power that could light up millions of homes. In the U.S., this means tapping into vast untapped areas, boosting energy independence and reducing our reliance on foreign oil. Plus, they're built miles offshore. We're talking 20 to 30 miles out, so they're not an eyesore from the beach. No more spoiling your sunset views with spinning blades up close. And here's a fun bit. They create jobs. From building platforms to maintaining the grid connections, local economies get a windfall. And yes, that pun was intended. Environmentally, being further out minimizes disruption to coastal ecosystems, though we still need to watch for marine life. But let's not sugarcoat it. There are cons, and they're as choppy as a stormy sea. The big one? Cost. Building and installing these floating platforms is pricey, with hefty upfront investments for materials, mooring systems, the specialized ships. Maintenance is trickier too, since you're dealing with ocean waves that could make a sailor queasy. Regulatory hurdles are another headache. Getting approvals from federal and state agencies can drag on for years, leading to delays and extra bucks. And speaking of the feds, as of 2025, a new executive order from January has put a pause on new offshore wind leases on the outer continental shelf. It's calling for thorough assessments of environmental impacts, which could slow things down while protecting fisheries and habitats. But critics say it ignores oil and gas harms and might jeopardize the 131,000 jobs in the wind sector. Environmentally, there's worry about impacts on birds, fish, and whales from construction noise or cables. Those studies from places like Europe show careful planning can mitigate that. Coastal communities might balk even if it's floating far away. But this is nothing new. Oil companies have been doing this for years. In fact, the technology for building floating wind farms came from floating oil platforms. Now, what does this mean for you landowners? If you're onshore, floating offshore could complement your wind or solar setups by stabilizing the grid and potentially lowering prices through more supply. But with the current slowdown from the executive order, opportunities might shift more to state-level projects, like in California, where floating wind is still pushing forward toward 2030 goals. For coastal folks, it could mean job booms in ports or supply chains, but watch for any fishing disruptions that might affect local economies. And hey, if you're leasing land for related infrastructure, like cable landings, you could see rental income similar to onshore deals. Think diversification without the turbines in your backyard. Just remember, while offshore takes the spotlight offshore, it doesn't replace the need for smart onshore planning. Floating wind farms, because fixed ones were getting too grounded, right? But seriously, this tech could be a game changer if we navigate these waves wisely. If you like what I've said today, be sure and click like and subscribe below. If you have thoughts or want me to address a particular topic relative to wind farms, please also leave me a comment. I want to close with a caution. Recognize what you read and hear has been written with a spin. The U.S. has two operating offshore wind projects, Block Island and the pilot turbines for Seaval. I have visited with experts with both. Block Island, the oldest one of the two, does not harm marine life at all. It actually helps it. In fact, fishermen will follow the maintenance boats out to them because the boat activity stirs up the marine life and fishing is better. And taking a page out of the Block Island playbook, the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project, or Seaval, created fish habitats at the turbine bases when they installed their two pilot turbines. This was to enhance marine life rather than harm it. Their plan is to replicate this throughout the project. Neither of these are floating projects, but I mentioned them to show you that wildlife, ecology, and the environment are important. And renewable companies are doing what it takes to keep them safe and healthy. This is Dennis Stout, and I'm the Windfarm Guy. Thank you for watching. Working together, we can make good energy decisions and save our planet. I am the Windfarm Guy.